There is a reason your heart has felt something shifting lately, even in the quiet moments when nothing around you seemed to change. Even when the days looked ordinary, even when the silence stretched longer than you expected, some hidden part of you kept sensing that something beneath the surface was moving. That feeling was not random. It was not imagination. It was the quiet awareness of your spirit recognizing movement before your eyes could ever confirm it. Because while you have been trying to make peace with uncertainty, while you have been teaching yourself how to let go, how to release, how to stop wondering, someone has been doing the exact opposite. Someone has been moving closer to the truth of what they feel for you. And what changed was not small. They stopped pretending this connection meant nothing. They stopped dismissing the way your presence lingers in their thoughts long after the world grows quiet. They stopped convincing themselves that what they feel could simply fade with time. Because no matter how much they tried to explain it away, no matter how many distractions they buried themselves inside, no matter how many times they told themselves to stay guarded, stay logical, stay distant, your name kept echoing in places they could not ignore. In ordinary moments, in late night silence, in conversations that had nothing to do with you, until suddenly, somehow, they did. And then came the moment they could no longer hide from themselves. Not from you, from themselves. Because opening their heart did not begin with a confession. It began in private, in silence. In that deeply human moment when someone finally admits what they have been too afraid to say out loud. They sat with the truth they had been resisting, and for the first time, they stopped fighting it. They admitted that you matter more than they planned for. More than they expected, more than is convenient, more than feels safe, and that realization changed everything. But here is what you do not yet see. Opening their heart has not made them reckless. It has made them careful. That is why their next step may surprise you. Because when someone finally realizes the depth of what they feel, they do not always run forward immediately. Sometimes they become still first. Sometimes realization creates pause before action. Sometimes the heart opens, and then the mind begins asking difficult questions. Questions they cannot avoid anymore. What if this is real? What if this matters more than anything before it? What if reaching for you changes everything? What if losing the chance hurts more than staying silent ever did? Do you understand what that means? It means this is no longer casual for them. This is no longer a passing thought or fleeting attraction they can laugh away tomorrow. This has become weightier than that, deeper than that, more life-altering than they expected. And when feelings become that real, people do not move carelessly. They begin thinking about consequences, timing, readiness, vulnerability, whether they can show up the way this kind of connection deserves. So if you have felt unusual quiet, if you have wondered why the energy feels intense but the movement feels delayed, do not mistake their pause for absence. Do not mistake their reflection for indifference. Some of the deepest emotional shifts happen in silence long before they become visible in action. They are not deciding whether they feel something. They are deciding what to do because of how deeply they feel it. And that is where the story turns. Because something inside them has begun changing faster now. The walls they once relied on are no longer protecting them. They are exhausting them. The distance they once maintained no longer feels wise. It feels unbearable. The excuses they once repeated no longer sound convincing, not even to themselves. They are reaching a point where silence costs more than honesty, where pretending feels heavier than risking vulnerability, where staying away from you is beginning to feel harder than stepping closer. But listen carefully. Their next step may not look the way you expect. It may not begin with dramatic words. It may not begin with some grand declaration. It may begin subtly, A message that feels simple on the surface but carries unusual weight beneath it. A conversation that suddenly becomes more honest than before. A moment where their eyes reveal what their mouth is still learning how to say. A shift in energy so undeniable that even before words arrive, you will feel something has changed. Because when a guarded heart finally opens, the transformation is rarely loud at first. It is quiet, intentional, measured, and yet impossible to fake. You will notice it in the way they start showing up differently, in the way their attention lingers longer than before, in the way they begin choosing courage. In small moments, in the way their presence starts carrying a tenderness that was once hidden behind hesitation. They may not know how to reveal everything all at once, but piece by piece, they will begin showing you what their heart has finally accepted. Still, there is one more truth you need to hear. Their surprise is not simply that they opened their heart. It is what they are preparing to release in order to follow it. Because some people do not only battle fear when love becomes real, they battle pride, old wounds, regret, timing, the version of themselves they built to survive before you arrived. And right now, whether you realize it or not, they are confronting every part of themselves that once believed vulnerability was weakness. Every past disappointment that taught them to hesitate. Every memory that whispered, "Protect yourself first." They are confronting it because of you. Because something about this connection has made remaining the same impossible. And that is why something important is waiting for you. Not in fantasy, not in illusion, but in the quiet unfolding of a heart learning to choose truth over fear. Yet the most surprising part has still not happened. Because opening their heart was only the beginning. What they are about to decide next will change the entire direction of this connection. And when that moment arrives, you will understand why everything had to unfold this slowly. There is a moment in every real connection when emotion stops being enough, and choice begins. That is the moment your person is approaching now. They have already felt the truth rising inside them. They have already admitted, at least to themselves, that what lives in their heart for you is no longer something they can dismiss. But feelings alone do not transform a life. Desire alone does not change destiny. At some point, the heart must ask the question that frightens almost everyone when love becomes real. Am I willing to change for this? And that is the question echoing inside them now. Because opening their heart did not simply awaken affection. It awakened responsibility. Suddenly they are realizing that if they step toward you, they cannot come halfway. They cannot bring uncertainty where sincerity is required. They cannot offer fragments where something whole is being asked of them. They understand, perhaps more than you know, that your heart is not a place to visit casually. Your spirit is not something to approach with confusion, mixed signals, or temporary intentions. If they come forward now, it must mean something. If they reach for you, it must be because they are ready to do so honestly. And that realization is reshaping them from the inside out. So while you may think they are merely thinking about you, what they are actually doing is confronting themselves. They are reviewing the parts of their life that no longer align with the future they suddenly want. Old habits that once felt harmless now feel like barriers. Certain distractions no longer satisfy the way they once did. Even some relationships around them are beginning to feel misaligned, because when someone's heart truly opens, their entire world starts rearranging around what matters most. They are beginning to recognize what in their life supports this connection, and what threatens it. What lifts them toward the person they need to become, and what keeps them stuck in the version of themselves that would lose you. That awareness is unsettling, because growth always sounds beautiful from a distance, until it demands sacrifice. And right now, whether they say it aloud or not, they are realizing that being close to you may require letting go of things they once thought they would keep forever. Old patterns, old fears, old attachments, old excuses, versions of themselves they have outgrown but have not yet fully released. The reason this matters is because they are no longer asking, "Do I feel something?" They are asking, "What must I become if I want this to work?" That is not a small question. It is the kind of question people only ask when something matters deeply. Stay with this thought for a moment, because many people never reach this point. Many feel attraction, many feel longing, many feel curiosity, but not everyone reaches the place where another person inspires transformation. Not everyone meets someone who makes them reflect, rebuild, and rethink the life they have been living. Not everyone encounters a connection powerful enough to expose where they have been settling, where they have been hiding, where they have been surviving instead of truly living. You did that without even trying. And now your presence is affecting them in ways they did not prepare for. But here is where the surprise grows even deeper. They may not approach you the way you imagined, because after opening their heart, their instinct is not to rush into grand declarations. It is to become worthy of what they now know they want. Before they speak fully, before they reveal everything, before they make their feelings undeniable, they are trying to strengthen the parts of themselves they fear are not yet ready. They want to come toward you with more than emotion. They want to come with clarity, with steadiness, with intention. They want their actions to match the depth of what they feel. And that means the next move may not be dramatic at first. It may be subtle. You may notice them becoming more consistent, more attentive, more intentional with their energy, more careful with their words. They may start asking deeper questions, revealing more of themselves, testing emotional waters they once avoided. They may begin creating moments with you that feel strangely more meaningful than before, as if every interaction now carries a hidden weight neither of you can fully ignore. Because once someone has opened their heart, even their smallest actions begin to change. But do not misunderstand their caution. This is not hesitation born from disinterest. This is someone realizing they care enough to fear doing it wrong. They are trying to get it right because they know some things cannot be approached carelessly. They know that if they mishandle this, if they move before they are ready, if they speak before they understand themselves fully, they could damage something precious before it even begins. So yes, they are slower than your heart may want. Yes, they are more thoughtful than you expected. Yes, their process may confuse you at times. But confusion and indifference are not the same thing. Silence and absence are not the same thing. Delay and lack of feeling are not the same thing. Sometimes the deepest emotions create the slowest movements, because the stakes feel too high for recklessness. And still, beneath all their reflection, beneath all their caution, beneath every careful step they are trying to take, pressure is building. Because no heart can stay open forever without expression. No truth can remain hidden forever once fully acknowledged. No love can stay trapped in silence once it reaches a certain depth. Something will give. Sooner than they expect, sooner than even you expect. The emotions they have been containing will become too heavy to manage quietly. The restraint will begin to crack. The careful distance they have maintained will become harder to sustain. The words they have rehearsed in private will start pressing against the edge of their silence, demanding release. And when that moment comes, their next step will not be half-hearted. It will not be vague. It will not be accidental. Because by the time they move, they will have wrestled with this long enough to know exactly why they are doing it. But before they reach you with that truth, one final internal battle remains. There is still something they must overcome before they can fully step into what their heart now wants. And what that is may explain everything you have felt up to this point. What still stands between them and the moment you have been waiting for is not lack of feeling. It is the final fear that rises when someone realizes they could truly lose something precious before they ever get to hold it. Because now that their heart is open, now that the truth has become impossible to deny, they are no longer afraid of whether this connection is real. They are afraid of what happens if they finally reveal themselves, and you do not meet them there. They are afraid that after all this inner change, all this emotional unraveling, all this quiet courage they have been building in private, the timing may somehow be wrong. They are afraid they waited too long. Afraid they misunderstood your silence. Afraid you may have moved on while they were still learning how to face what they feel. That fear is heavier than they expected, because it is one thing to desire someone from a distance. It is another to admit that person now holds the power to affect your future, and whether they would ever say it aloud or not, you affect theirs. The thought of reaching for you and finding distance where they hoped for warmth has humbled them. It has forced them into an emotional honesty they have not had to face in a very long time. For perhaps the first time, they are understanding what it means to want something deeply enough that rejection feels like more than disappointment. It feels like the loss of something that mattered before it even fully began. And yet, something inside them is changing because of that fear. Instead of pushing them away from you, it is pushing them toward courage. Because they are beginning to realize a quiet truth that transforms people when they finally accept it. Regret lasts longer than vulnerability. Wondering forever what might have happened hurts more than risking honesty and hearing the truth. Living with unanswered questions becomes heavier than living with temporary uncertainty. And little by little, that realization is breaking the final hold fear has had over them. You may not see it yet. You may only sense it in fragments. A strange pull in your spirit, a feeling that something is nearing, an unexplainable restlessness in moments when everything around you appears still. That is because decisions are being made in places you cannot yet see. They are reaching the point where silence no longer protects them, it torments them. The words they have held back are becoming too loud inside their chest. The emotions they tried to organize neatly are spilling beyond containment. They thought understanding their feelings would bring peace, but instead it brought urgency. Because once someone truly knows what their heart wants, delay begins to feel unbearable. And this is where the surprise in their next step becomes even more meaningful. When they come forward, it may not be polished. It may not be perfect. It may not sound like the flawless confession you imagined in your quietest dreams. Because real vulnerability rarely arrives scripted. It arrives with trembling honesty, with imperfect words, with pauses, with emotion breaking through careful sentences, with someone trying to explain feelings that have lived too long in silence. And when they speak, what will matter most is not how elegantly they say it, but the undeniable truth you will feel beneath every word. Because they are no longer preparing to merely hint. They are preparing to be known. To let you see the side of them they once protected at all costs. To admit they have thought of you more than they ever planned to. To reveal that this connection changed them long before they understood why. To acknowledge that trying to suppress what they feel only made those feelings stronger. And perhaps the most unexpected part of all. They are no longer just thinking about how they feel. They are thinking about what a future with you could look like. That thought has entered their mind more than once now. Quietly at first, briefly, then more often, then with startling clarity. They have begun imagining conversations not yet had, moments not yet shared, possibilities not yet lived. They have begun picturing what life could become if this connection were no longer unspoken. If distance were replaced with closeness. If uncertainty were replaced with truth. That is when everything changed. Because once someone starts imagining a future with you, they can no longer pretend you are just a passing feeling. You become part of the life they are mentally building. And once that happens, hearts do not return easily to detachment. Still, before they take that step, one final realization is forming inside them. A realization so powerful it will remove the last trace of hesitation they have carried. They are beginning to understand that love is not found in waiting for perfect certainty. It is found in choosing someone even when certainty is impossible. It is found in risking honesty because what you feel is too meaningful to remain hidden. It is found in showing up before every fear has vanished. It is found in deciding that something beautiful matters more than self-protection. And when that truth fully settles in them, everything will move faster than it has before, clearer than it has before, more directly than you expect. Because once a guarded heart decides, fear no longer gets the final say. Nothing remains the same. Their silence is nearing its end. Their restraint is nearing its limit. Their next move is no longer a distant possibility. It is becoming an inevitability. And when it begins, you will finally understand why the universe allowed this connection to unfold slowly. Because what is about to happen next required both of you to become ready first. But readiness is only the beginning. Because the way they choose to reveal this truth may catch you completely off guard. The moment they choose to reveal what has been living in their heart will not arrive the way most people imagine. It will not necessarily come wrapped in perfect timing, flawless words, or some dramatic scene where every emotion lands exactly where it should. Real turning points rarely announce themselves that way. More often, they arrive in an ordinary moment that suddenly stops feeling ordinary at all. A conversation that begins simply, then shifts. A glance that lingers longer than expected. A silence between sentences that carries more truth than speech ever could. And in that quiet opening, something they have held back for far too long will finally begin to surface. You may sense it before they say anything. Because energy changes before words do. There is a certain stillness that enters the room when someone is about to speak from the deepest part of themselves. A tension, a softness, a vulnerability that can be felt even in the way they breathe. And when that moment comes, you will realize this is not casual for them. This is not impulsive. This is not someone speaking from temporary emotion. This is someone who has wrestled with themselves in private, replayed every possibility, questioned every fear, and still arrived at the same conclusion. They can no longer keep this hidden. But what may surprise you most is how honest they are willing to be. Not surface level honesty. Not safe honesty, the kind of honesty that only appears when someone is tired of pretending they are unaffected. They may tell you they tried to ignore what they felt. They may admit they fought this connection longer than you ever knew. They may reveal that they convinced themselves distance was smarter, safer, easier, and yet none of it worked. Because no amount of distance changed what they felt. No amount of silence erased your presence from their mind. No amount of time weakened what kept growing in secret. And perhaps for the first time, you will hear them speak with the kind of openness that leaves no room for confusion. Not because they suddenly became fearless, but because what they feel for you has become greater than their fear. That is the true surprise in all of this. It is not simply that they opened their heart. It is that they are about to let you see how deeply this has affected them. They are about to reveal that this was never as casual to them as it may have appeared. That their quietness hid more feeling than distance. That their hesitation came from caring too much, not too little. That while you may have wondered whether they ever truly felt this connection the way you did, they have been carrying far more than they ever allowed themselves to show. And when they speak, something inside you may suddenly understand why every delay happened the way it did. Because some hearts do not open quickly. Some people require time to dismantle the walls they built from old pain. Some need silence before clarity. Some need to lose their own internal battle before they can choose honesty. Some need to become certain that what they feel is real before they risk placing it in another person's hands. That is what this has been. Not avoidance, preparation, not indifference, transformation. And yet, their confession is not the end of the story. It is the beginning of something far more vulnerable. Because once truth is spoken, the connection can no longer hide behind ambiguity. Once feelings are revealed, both of you must decide what comes next. Once the heart is laid bare, everything changes. The distance that once felt protective disappears. The uncertainty that once left room for guessing vanishes. What remains is choice. Mutual, honest, undeniable choice. That is why their confession will carry more than emotion. It will carry intention. They are not preparing to simply tell you how they feel and disappear back into silence. They are not opening their heart merely to release emotion they can no longer contain. They are stepping forward because part of them hopes, deeply hopes, that this truth can become the beginning of something real. Something lived, not imagined. Something built, not merely felt. And that hope has changed them more than you know. Because people do not fight this hard for what means little to them. They do not confront their deepest fears for temporary attraction. They do not rebuild their inner world for passing emotion. They do not risk rejection, vulnerability, and emotional exposure for something they can walk away from easily. No. They do this when they believe what stands before them may be rare. And in their heart, whether they have said it yet or not. That is what you have become to them. Rare, meaningful, difficult to forget, impossible to replace. But even after they reveal everything, one final surprise remains. Because the truth they confess may be deeper than you expect. Deeper than simple affection. Deeper than longing, deeper than missing you. What they are preparing to admit next may change the way you understand this entire connection. Because their heart has not only opened, it has chosen.